Ladies, are you the one who gets it all done? Always pushing forward, always striving, in the constant chase for success. When was the last time you took a moment just for you? We are always on the go, rushing from one task to the next, barely pausing to catch our breath. What if we took a moment to pause? Imagine listening in, really listening to the wind, your heartbeat, your soul. What if slowing down was the key? A chance to discover a deeper connection with yourself. And from that connection, expand it to those you love, to the moments that truly matter. Pause, reflect, connect. It's time to live fully from the inside out. Hello and welcome back to A Soulful Pause. I'm Josette Diaz and I am your host and the founder of Seasons of the Soul. And A Soulful Pause is a space to slow down so that we can breathe and remember who we are underneath all the roles that we play during life. And today's conversation is for anyone who has ever looked at life when it looks successful on paper and felt a quiet voice that sits underneath it and whispers, "This isn't it anymore." I've been through that myself, and I know that my guest is going to have a lot to say about it because this is her story. And so my guest is Melissa Hidrobo. For 20 years, Melissa led luxury boutiques for houses like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Tiffany Co. The kind of career most people spend their lives chasing. And then late one night, a single sentence rose up in her. "I don't want to do this anymore." That sentence became the beginning of a complete redesign of her life. Melissa now works as a career exit strategist, helping high-achieving professionals design strategic exits from careers that no longer fit who they've become. She holds an MBA and a master's in Transpersonal Psychology, and she's a certified professional coach. And more than her credentials, she's living proof of what she teaches. She now splits her time between Miami and Ecuador as a digital nomad, and she'll tell you the real risk was never leaving. The real risk was staying. So, Melissa, welcome to A Soulful Pause. It's so nice to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Josette. I'm excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, me too. I'm fascinated at the fact that you have created a life. I love the digital nomad, and that you've created a life where you get to be in the States for a period of time, and then you spend time in Ecuador, correct?
I do. So Ecuador is not foreign to me. My father's from here. My parents were divorced when I was very young, and I've been coming here my entire life. When I was in Miami, which is a city that I love and I consider it my home in the US, I was far away from my family, with my mom being in Connecticut and my dad over here.
Oh, yeah.
So now that I don't have to go to a boutique every day, I get to spend a lot of time in Ecuador, but I still keep my Miami connections, going back there every couple of months.
Oh, that's so nice. That is really nice. So I thought we should get started on talking about, from the beginning, like where it started. You say in your bio that you heard a voice. And was that a voice that you were familiar with?
I believe it was an internal voice that just came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I had already been feeling for many years that I needed a change and that I wasn't living authentically with the person that I was or who I was becoming, because as we all evolve through life.
Right.
And so I had felt it, but I remember I got home after, long boutique hours. It was about 11 p.m.
Mhm.
And I sank into the couch and I just heard this voice that clearly said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And that was so important because literally I asked myself a series of questions. Okay, if I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, what is it that I do
Mhm.
want?
Yeah.
And I asked myself a series of questions. And based on the answers to those questions, I very quickly had an idea of what I wanted to do next. And it actually happened that night on the couch. Everything just kind of evolved. And I asked myself questions like, okay, so if I love studying and I love learning. If I went back to college to study, what would I major in?
Mm.
Not because it's necessarily a moneymaker,
Yeah.
but because it would feed my soul. The answer was psychology and world religions, which ended up being transpersonal
Mm.
psychology and spirituality.
Nice.
And I asked myself about my skill set, what I love to do that I can bring forward with me. What is it that maybe I'm good at doing, but I never want to do again? So I'm going to leave it behind. So little by little, I came up with, that exact night, okay, I think I want to do some life and spiritual coaching.
Mm.
And then I said to myself,
Nice.
well, I can go directly to get my coaching certification, or I can really dig deeper and understand human growth and
Mhm.
transformation. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what I did. I found a master's
Mm.
program and I spent 4 years doing it. I had to go part-time because I had a very demanding job. And
Yes.
to make a long story short, that night I just started putting things into motion. That was August 2019. And by January 2020, I already started working fully on my plan, my roadmap.
Wow. Wow, that's very exciting. I think that I love that you made a choice to dive deeper into the thing that was calling you so that it could develop in you organically in a way that, is in my mind, we've all taken, or I shouldn't, generalize and say we all, but many of us have taken certification after certification, course after course, to maybe hone in on a particular skill or to just have the piece of paper that says that we went through something to, have a result to make us credible, right? And what you did instead was to deep dive and spend 4 years of your life really honing your skill. And that to me feels so much more authentic, valuable. Um, the amount of work that it took and for you to sustain that, to hold the capacity to work and, go to school it says a lot about you as a person and as a person who can lead others. And I think that that's such a beautiful testament to the work that you're now doing. So, if you mentioned here in your bio also that um, if you were to have stayed, it would have been more costly. And our brain, our left side of our brain says, "What? What do you mean? You've
Yes.
got a job and blah blah blah. You're building your 401 and all that good stuff." So, can you explain to the audience a little bit more about like what that cost would have been, what that meant to you, a little bit more specifically?
Absolutely. The cost was happening over a very long time. In retail, luxury retail or regular retail, we
Mhm.
work very erratic hours. We don't have a set
Yeah.
schedule. One day we're closing the boutique and getting home at 11 p.m. The next day we're getting up at 6 a.m. to be back in the boutique at 8 a.m. for another day. Things come up in the boutique. We have to stay longer than our shifts. We're working holidays, we're working weekends. We don't even have a normal time to eat. One day we'll have lunch at 12 and the next day it's 5 p.m.
Mhm.
So it was really taking a cost as well, like it's taking a toll on my mind, body, and spirit. I stopped celebrating holidays
Mhm.
because my family, as I said, were split across the world.
Yeah.
And I love Thanksgiving. I would celebrate Thanksgiving with my friends in Miami, but when it came to December 25th, which is Christmas, for someone who's working retail up until evening on December 24th, you're exhausted on the 25th.
Yeah.
And I was a single woman. I'm not married. I don't have kids. So I just wanted to crash and relax after a very
Mhm.
hectic season. I really can appreciate my colleagues who do have families and kids and would
Yeah.
have to get up early the next day and make it special for them.
Mm.
So the cost was also not seeing my family as much and really wanting to have a freedom of
Mhm.
time over my own schedule. And that was something that was really taking a toll on me as well, was that I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I had control over my life. So those are all the different type of cost. And it got to a point where when I had made that decision that I wanted to do something else, I never came up with my exit date. I just said to myself, for 10 years down the line, when I'm ready to leave retail, I'll have a plan. But what
Mhm.
happened is that that day came sooner than I expected. It was 3 years in that I was feeling completely burnt out, again, mind, body, and spirit. And I felt like a shell of myself. And I would
Mm.
look in the mirror and I wouldn't even recognize myself. And I had this overwhelming feeling that was if I stay for 30 more days, I'm not going to be here. And I had no idea what that looked like because I wasn't thinking of harming myself. That wasn't it. It
Right.
was more like I noticed like I was behind the wheel of my car driving home, saying to myself, I have absolutely no business driving right now. This is how exhausted I am. I didn't know if it was going to be like a collapse from exhaustion. I didn't know.
Right.
I just knew that I had to get out. So I took a 1.5 week mental health break leave from
Mhm.
work. And I partnered with my psychologist to talk it over. And through those conversations, it came that it was time. And I was very grateful because part of the plan that I had set up for myself, my strategic exit roadmap,
Mhm.
was working with a financial advisor. Because 3 years earlier, when I had that thought that I don't want to do this anymore, I wouldn't have been able to leave financially.
Right. Yeah.
So I was so grateful that I had that was part of my roadmap and working towards a solid financial foundation so that when I had
Mhm.
this emergency where it was time and I needed to leave now and dedicate myself to my own well-being, I was able to do so.
I love that. I have a question about that, because I think that that's such an important thing for women especially to take care of themselves in this way. And, when you did work with your financial advisor, did you give yourself, like, a time frame of how long you could, take to build something else? Was that your plan, or were you planning on finding a different kind of career other than, I mean, I know that what you went back to school for, so was coaching always the plan, I guess is my question. Go
Once
ahead.
I figured out coaching, yes, that was
Mhm.
the plan, but when it came to your specific question of the reason why I was working with the financial advisor, for what purpose,
Mhm.
it it wasn't necessarily because of a specific timeline, because I had
Okay.
mentioned that I wanted to leave retail, but I wasn't sure when the date would be. For example, with my clients, yes, when we talk about the financial aspect,
Mhm.
sometimes they do, a lot of times they actually want to focus on a certain amount before they leave. But with me, it was just, I need to build a robust emergency fund. And I really wanted as much as I could possibly have. That's why I was so diligent over the years, but never really knowing that I was going to be using
Mm.
that emergency fund
Right.
for that. I was thinking maybe I'll do it for a down payment on a condo. I just knew that I wanted to have a fund. So I ended up using it for my exit.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
Okay, so, I mean, you can set that up however you want. Like, I think in the circumstances in which you were in, that made a lot of sense. And
Yes,
you prepared yourself for something, whatever that something was gonna be.
exactly.
And so any individual can set that up however they like. But I think it's very wise to have someone that guides you when you are making this decision to shift your career. Sometimes you don't have the privilege of having time to plan. So, do you help those that find themselves in that situation where suddenly they are no longer in the career they were, and maybe they were in that career for a number of years? And so switching gears you can feel so discombobulated. I think, anyone who leaves a long time career, whether it's by choice or not, goes through a long period of recalibrating themselves. It's, a bit of grief as well, and so those things need to be honored. How do you help people transition who find themselves suddenly in that space?
That's such a great question. And I'll start by saying that I went through that myself. When I was still in my career, I would hear from friends that had left that it took them a year to just start feeling better. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, that seems like a long time.
Yeah.
And then I went through it myself. And at a year, I was just starting to feel better. But now, after 3 years, I finally feel like my nervous system had reset. So I have
Mhm.
been through all the emotions
Mhm.
and bodily feelings that my clients go through as well. Because I work with people who are still in their careers and want to transition, but I also work with people who have either left because they had a similar story that I did, that it was detrimental to their health, or they
Mhm.
left that it wasn't their choice.
Mhm.
So in my program, when I work with them, I actually start with the inner foundation. Who are they beyond their title? Because I know that, especially in the United States, we are so closely tied, like who we are is so
Mhm.
closely tied to our career. And we
Right.
go through questions like, okay, who am I based on my achievements? And who am I without all of those achievements? What I
Mhm.
study, what I've been able to achieve in my career. Who am I as a person? We talk about that. We talk about what their definition of success used to be versus what it is for their future.
Yeah.
I'm also a spiritual coach. A lot of my clients have some type of spirituality, whether
Mhm.
they're more religious, whether they're more spiritual, or whether they just want to work with their intuition or tap into themselves. I
Mhm.
align with that. And upon request, I can also go deeper into spiritual practices, which helps the recovery process.
Yeah.
So, my program and the way I work merges strategy. I'm
Mhm.
a businesswoman, 20 years. I'm strategic, I'm methodical, I have an MBA, but it also merges the soul,
Mhm.
which is my transpersonal psychology background, which is the inner work, overcoming fears and limiting beliefs. I find that it's very important to have both. We need to look within and set a foundation of who we are and what we want, and feel better about that before we can actually put the strategy of how we're going to do it into motion.
And that is so true. I think that people are waking up to that more and more. I see it everywhere. You see it on LinkedIn. I'm sure you've noticed that. There's a lot more spiritual messaging that's placed there that used to not be in in service there. So it's really nice to see that. And I love that you allow this flexibility in your work. That feels very organic to me, and that's a lovely place for women to be. I relate to what you're saying so much. When I left my career, I left to stay home with my children. I had just had my last child. I had a 12-year-old and, a newer marriage. And so it was important to me that I gave that time to my family. Yet it was such a transition. And I agree with that 1 year. It took me a year to start feeling like I sort of knew my surroundings again.
Yes.
And it took me even longer. And I feel that, it's taken me a long time to sort of like mend that relationship with that part of myself in a way, because it wasn't that I left because I didn't love my job. I left because I love my family more.
Mhm.
And then there's that space in between that. And so that can be a very difficult transition to make. And you sort of tuck things away and then they start resurfacing years later. That's what I've found in my own experience.
Yeah, Josette, I think that it's very important for people to hear stories like the story that you have and your experience, and the one that I've had, which is similar
Mhm.
in terms of recovery time, because what I find a lot of times is that they feel alone and
Yeah.
they feel like this isn't normal, but it's actually the norm.
Right, right. There's so many things that we think aren't normal, and yet they're actually normal. So many people feel the same way, and we have just put ourselves in a lesser position and not really honored who we really truly are within, because we think that we're outside the box and we're really not.
Exactly. And something else that you said that stayed with me is that it's not that you left because you didn't love your career, you did, but
Mhm.
you loved your family more.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
with me, it was that I'm somebody that had a lot of fears, and I wouldn't have called myself courageous,
Mm.
but the pain became greater than the fear. And
Yeah.
that's when I acted.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for the audience to understand as well that, or the listeners to understand that there are people who think they can't do it, and I thought it would never be me because it's not my personality, but I'm proof that it could be done. If you're yearning for a different type of lifestyle with a different type of
Mhm.
career, give yourself that space to think through it, because if I can do it, I feel like anybody can do it.
Right. Yes. I know. I think that sometimes we often think that we can't do things, yet we really are capable of doing that.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to kind of move into this question around the inner voice, because I really want to get to some of the strategies, but I want to talk to you about this a little bit more, because you mentioned that you heard the voice. How
Mhm.
long had that voice been kind of whispering to you? And do you feel that that is a process of identifying that inner voice where you can start to, because we think the inner voice is supposed to have some kind of, I don't know, different tone, or it's supposed to be loud, yet often it's very quiet and it sounds just like you, like your normal thoughts.
Yes.
So,
That's a great question. Okay, my personal experience was that I felt nudges, not necessarily hearing a voice like I did
mhm,
that night on the couch,
yeah.
but I had already, I mean, for years before, I already had felt nudges that just something was off.
Mhm,
And something that I always like to suggest, because we're all very busy.
right.
We're all tied to our corporate careers, to, in my case, luxury retail careers, to our families, to expectations from our families, our parents, society. So we don't really have the time to spend with ourselves and think things through. So what I like to offer is schedule at least 1 minute 4 times a week,
Mhm,
and make it important as you would a business meeting or going to your child's event at school, and put it in
yeah.
your calendar, and just be with yourself, whether you're sitting, whether you're walking, and start to feel what comes up. Okay?
Mhm,
It could be something that comes to your mind. If nothing comes to your mind, maybe it's something that you're feeling in your body. If you're not feeling anything, maybe it's what you're noticing around you. Don't try to force anything. Just start feeling, thinking, and just being.
yeah.
And maybe something will come to you in that moment about whatever question you have, and maybe it won't. Maybe it will come a little bit later. But the importance of doing something like this is that you're allowing yourself to have space with yourself. And then insights are going to come to you at the most unexpected time.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I really love that it's just starting off with a micro minute, just a minute.
Exactly.
You don't really need more than that. And, I know that there's people that will sit for a very long time in meditation, which is a beautiful thing. And I think you get a lot from that as well. And it can start with just a minute, because I
Mine
think we're,
started,
yeah.
actually, I had a boss some years ago
Hmm.
that produced a lot of anxiety in me,
Hmm.
in one of the brands that I worked for. And it started with going to my car for 10 minutes and putting on a 10-minute meditation on YouTube. That's how it all
Nice.
started. Then I was able to meditate throughout the years for much longer times, but I just started with somebody else's meditation guiding me
Hmm.
through it, like
Right.
something else. That was the space that I gave myself.
That's beautiful. I think sometimes I hear often from people that they can't meditate or they don't enjoy it. And honestly, I think that everybody has their own way. Like,
Absolutely.
meditation can be things like doing the dishes, folding the laundry. doing a puzzle. I love to do puzzles because I'm a very active mind. And so if I'm doing something like that that's methodical or searching, it also helps me to
Yeah.
relax enough to, sit into a meditative state. And I'll get ideas and different things will come to me, resolutions to problems when I am meditating in that way. So meditation can come in different ways for everyone. And starting off in small ways to find your path is such a great way to do it. And I love that advice. Um,
All very true.
yeah.
Yes.
So let's get into some redesign. So, like when you are working with people, how do you help like other high achievers like design a strategic exit rather than just like walking out the door? We've already kind of touched a little bit on the financial piece
Mhm.
with some indications there for people, but is there a difference, or what's the difference between an impulsive exit versus a strategic one? And why does that distinction matter so much when you're making this kind of a decision? Because you already kind of know before if someone just walks out impulsively, they already have an idea they don't want to be there.
Absolutely. So impulsive for me would be just taking the leap, right? Just saying
Hmm.
one day to the next, I'm leaving, and I don't even have an idea of what I'm going to do next or a plan. And people do that too because they get so fed up or are so affected with the current situation that they have to do that for their own well-being. I would call that more of an impulsive exit, but I do feel like we all have a nudge when something has changed for us.
Hmm.
And that's when we can start the strategic exit, which is what I call the bridge solution. So, what I advise there is that if you are able to stay in your career, in your current position for a little bit longer, I would encourage that they do that. And then what I do with my clients is that that's when we start working on their plan, their strategic exit roadmap. And we go through the process of the program that I have. And a lot of people come to me. Some of them will know or have an idea, some type of idea of what they want to do next. Maybe they have a couple of ideas and they need to narrow it down.
Yeah.
And others really won't have any idea. So that's something that we have to work on as well. Thinking
Mm.
about what is it that I love? What are my passions? What are the skill sets that I enjoy doing? And what are the possibilities out there also that can produce a livelihood for myself? So we put those
Nice.
things together.
Okay.
Um, And yeah, that's for me the bridge solution. That's more of a strategic exit is having that steadiness, that
Mhm.
income, those benefits, but on
Yeah.
the same time working, whether with a coach or with yourself, working toward what's next. And you may want to give yourself a timeline to have a goal. That timeline could be flexible, but at
Mhm.
least you have like an end date in mind. So you're
Right.
working towards something. And yeah, so that's what I would consider the strategic exit.
I love that. And what do you do with people with the who show up after they quit their job? They said, "I'm not prepared. What do I do?"
I have had people that have quit their job while they're with me
Mm.
because they've been in a situation where they just couldn't go in anymore to their
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And I have had people that have come and they've left either on their own or they haven't left on their own. And for those people, usually their number one concern is getting in somewhere where they could have an income.
Hmm.
Like I was just speaking to somebody this week, and this person said to me that they really need to have an income. They're a father with children, they have a family to provide for, and they need the income now. And so they're actively applying to jobs and close to two job offers. But this person also said, I don't want to be in the same position in a couple of more years, and I need to start planning now. So I would always advise, okay, let's if you're in a position where you need to have income immediately, let's get you a position as soon as we
Hmm.
can, even if that's what you have experience in, even if that's not your long
Right.
goal to stay, but you'll have that income, and then together we can work and plan for what's next.
Yes, I love that. See, everyone, you don't need to panic. You have an opportunity to work with someone like Melissa, who will help you see and fill in the holes that you don't, that are just keeping you kind of standing still, being afraid. I think that that's a common reaction for a lot of people.
Absolutely, and they haven't given themselves the space because they just didn't have the time and space.
Hmm.
Or too bogged down to really think through other options as well. What about a part-time job? Would that
Right.
provide enough
Yeah.
income or some type of going into consulting? Or they can be very creative people and be able to do
Hmm.
something with their creativity immediately. So there's different type of options to work through and to think about.
Yeah, I love that. I'd like to ask you one question. Before you left, what's one thing that maybe you wish someone had told you before you made your own exit?
One of the things, I think I knew it, but I would like to share that exits can take time. A strategic
Mhm.
exit with the bridge solution can take a little bit of time. So as soon as you're starting to feel like, I think I want to explore what could be next, that's when you need to act on it.
Mm.
Um, what also I think what I would have liked someone to tell me is that I am capable of a lot more than I thought in that moment. Um, And also, I was mourning that I was going to lose my tribe. For
Mm.
20 years, I was part of an industry, which a lot of
Yeah,
people wanted to be part of. I
yeah.
was part of a tribe where we understood each other. I felt like I belonged. The feeling of belonging is very important for people. And I was mourning that I was going to lose that.
Hmm.
Little did I know I was going to be able to retain and grow my tribe because what I found was that a lot of people from the luxury retail industry where I had spent my entire career came to work with me. And
Yeah.
I find now that my tribe has expanded in that same industry worldwide. And probably I'm more connected now than I was going to a boutique in it
Mhm.
every day at a brand in Miami.
Mm.
That was a beautiful and unexpected surprise for me. So
Yeah.
what you think you may be losing, that might not be the case. You might be gaining it in even a greater way.
And isn't that fascinating that I think that we get used to being in the environment we're in, and then we think that we have like limitations around that environment that we're not even aware of. And here you were thinking you had this nice, beautiful, wide world that you were in, and then when you left, you found that it was actually even bigger.
Absolutely. Because not only do I have an expanded luxury retail industry tribe,
Yeah.
but I have a tribe of coaches.
Hmm.
I have a tribe in one of my passions, which is soul work and spirituality.
Yeah.
I'm forming a tribe across people in corporate and other industries who are suffering right now and want a way out. So every day I'm expanding my network. I have a lot
Hmm.
of students reaching out for me to me worldwide. Many in France actually who just want some guidance and some mentorship.
Yeah.
So I have about, I don't know, a handful, more than a handful of conversations with new people every single week that
Yeah.
really has nothing to do with my work and my program. Apart from that, I'm meeting just new people. Of
Right. And yes, which is such a valuable thing to have. Not I mean, in two ways. One, the interpersonal connection that you're making, and it builds relationships, which is always a good thing to have. And it also is helping you create an arsenal of support,
Absolutely.
which
Yeah.
is really exciting. So I'd like to just kind of move into how you are, just from this conversation, living proof, and that you can do it. You can leave and create something that you love to be, as a life that you love, a career that you love. And you've said that the real risk isn't leaving your comfort zone, and we've already kind of attested to that by this last question, but it's staying in a life that no longer fits your soul. I think that's such a great way to put it, because we ignore that interior life that we have because we're so busy proving ourselves a lot, especially as women. And so now that you're living between Miami and Ecuador, on on the other side of this exit process, what does it feel like to be living proof of your own message?
Feel as in inside of me, emotions, I can tell you that I wake up such a calmer person.
Mm,
I used to wake up, I think, my entire career with anxiety every single morning. It
mm,
wasn't just the last couple of years. I always had anxiety, expectations. Am I meeting them? Am I meeting my own goals?
yeah.
Um, I feel like I can breathe. And I love that I get to manage my own time. For
Mm,
example, some people ask me, well, now that you work for yourself, do you still work long hours? Absolutely. I've been in my business for like 2.5 years now, and I consider that I'm new in the business. 2.5 years is very young for a business. And I do
yes.
put in long hours, but I'm still able to manage my time that when I want to travel somewhere, I can just go. I just pick up my
Right.
computer and it doesn't affect my clients at all if I'm taking the call in Ecuador, in Miami, in
Mhm.
Japan, Europe, wherever.
Right.
The work, my focus and the work stays the same. So yes, I work a lot, but I work on my terms. If, at 4 p.m. today, I don't have a call and I want to go to the park and take a walk, I
Hmm.
do so, and then I come
Hmm.
back and work.
Yeah.
If my sister calls me and says, "Hey, come over for lunch today," I do so.
Hmm.
As long as I'm meeting my calls, I can rearrange all the other work that I have behind the scenes,
Yes.
and manage my time. And I feel also that I'm living more authentically,
Hmm.
the person that I am, that I'm feeling fulfilled. And I'll just be very transparent. A lot of my life, I've suffered with depression
Hmm.
and a deep feeling of loneliness. And once I found my purpose, which is the work that I do now, that has completely dissipated. I
Mm.
no longer have that depression or that loneliness. Do I have personal
Yeah.
problems with other people? Absolutely.
Right. It's
But
life.
I manage it differently.
Yeah.
And because I found my purpose and I'm living what I love doing, I no longer have what I was feeling before.
Mhm. I think that's a beautiful way for us to end our conversation. Is there anything else that you might want to share before we go, or a message or anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Give yourself space. I think a lot of times we are capable of a lot more than we give ourselves credit for.
Mm.
We just don't have the time to think things through and of what other opportunities exist for us. So I encourage everybody to give themselves grace. And
Yes.
also, if there's anything that I can support you with, visit my website, thestellarsoul.com. There's a quiz there that you can take to see what other possibilities may be open for you. And you can also always reach out to me to my email and ask any question that you may have. Or if anything came up for you in this conversation that you listened to and you just wanted to talk things through, just send me an email. I'll be happy to be in contact.
Beautiful. And your website is scrolling across the bottom here for us. So, Melissa, thank you so much for showing us that leaving isn't the failure and staying past your own expiration date is. If anyone is listening and is feeling the same late night whisper right now, I hope that this conversation gave you permission to finally listen to it and that you can make a plan and live a life that you feel more aligned with. So, I'd like to thank you again, Melissa, for being here with us and sharing with the audience all of the treasures that you've collected along the way. And we will see everyone next time. So thank you for pausing with us today and keep choosing the life that actually fits your soul. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.